We took a midweek win onto the weekend. The biggest thing I think that let us down this weekend is our consistency in our pitching, our starting pitching the first game one and game two. We just didn't get the performances we normally get from those two guys. And so they went back to work this week. They'll go back to work this week to try to get themselves ready. Our week's going to push up one because of Easter Sunday. Going into Sunday, we got a good pitching performance. That's, again, hate to be a broken record, but everything strives around pitching. If you can be consistent, get off to a good start, keep the score down, especially with a team that doesn't score a ton of runs, it takes the pressure off of them. And so Schmidt's been really, really good. He was good again Sunday. He's been our most consistent arm all the way through. And he put us in a close game. We played very good defense again. We did make, one error, but overall our team has been very good defensively all year. I think that's been the big plus for us. That's been the thing that's been the most consistent is our defense. So one good thing is we got to keep that right there. We got to get our starters to come back and have good starts this weekend, be able to get off to a good start, not to let an inning spin out of control like we did on Saturday, and then try to get some consistency. We know we're having it out of the third starter right now. We just got to get some consistency back with Nick and Jack. I know they went back to work this week. They'll work hard to get themselves ready to go for this weekend. This will be a unique stretch for us. We're going to LSU tomorrow in New Orleans. We'll get back late. We'll turn back around early the next morning and head out to Arkansas. From there, we play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So everything's been moved up for the pitching staff a day. And then from there, we'll come back and get Easter Sunday off, which will be great for the families and for them, the ones that live near here. And then from there, we'll get on the road again. So this is a little bit of a tough stretch for us. But again, that'll do nothing but hopefully toughen us up. The tougher we can get, the more wounded we get along the way, the tougher skin we get. Keep sewing up our wounds and moving, and hopefully it pays off for us down the stretch. Questions you might have?
Who starts tomorrow, and conversely, what's the weekend look like?
Well, right now we don't know till today. We always let them throw on Mondays, and we'll see. So we'll check and see Hogan's status again and see where he's at, and then we know that Austin can start for us, depending on where Hogan is. So we'll check into that. As far as for the weekend, it's very tough to manipulate this weekend due to you'd like to bring Smitty up if you could because he's been so consistent. But with the way the week runs on us, we're caught because you can't start cutting his rest back. Right now, he's been very good. We have, Shart started him, then brought him back on a Sunday. And so we've done some things already along the way to mess with his rest. The last thing we need to do is have this guy go down because we're overworking him. So he hit right at the 100 pitch mark on Sunday. So usually they have at least 4 to 5 days rest in between the starters. So we'll take a look at that and see what we want to do. But I trust Nick to get back to where he needs to be, and I trust Jack will be back to where he needs to be for the weekend. I don't know if we'll switch anything just because the week's moving up on us. It's caught us. The following weekend, I think we can maybe do some things because we now have the rest time appropriately to maybe make a switch if we need to. So I don't think you'll see anything major. I think the big thing we got to just decide with Hogan is just where is he, and pitch count wise, where is he at? Trying to build up his tolerance, because the biggest thing that people don't realize is that when that guy got injured, he didn't get injured after he had 3 90-pitch starts. He got injured at the 40-pitch mark on opening day. So when he went into resting it, there was no throwing, there was no running, there was no nothing. So we just have to be careful and make sure that we don't want to put him at risk.
So if you weren't able to start him, might you still bring him out of the pen?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think he's, close to throwing again for sure. It's just a matter of, how do you just use him to build up his tolerance?
What does it mean to you to be able to play LSU as regularly and frequently as you do, especially in light of all the basketball nonsense?
Well, I mean, the big thing for us is that it's SEC RPI, which is big, and then they're so close to us. So financially, it's just really good. It's also good for class because we can get there and 50 minutes to an hour, we're back after the game's over. I mean, it satisfies almost every need we have. You know, wanting to play a good team, wanting to have a good RPI, wanting to try to compete against a team that can compete at a national level, getting there, getting back. It's costs. The cost factor's good, and then being able to also get there and play, you know, in that tough of an environment is good for our team. It's tough you can't go many places and surround, you know, 10,000 people around your team for pressure. There you can do it. Maneri even said it, I think, on his press conference before they came here, that he wanted to take his team into a tough environment. So, I mean, that's how you make a team better. Is you know, like I said before, you can't take a little house cat that's been in the house his whole life and take him to the jungle. He's dead in probably 2 hours. You just can't do it. I mean, you have to put him in that environment to toughen him up. And so it's been good for us. Going to New Orleans, too, is good, playing the Pontiff Classic, because, you know, it's an honor and a privilege to be chosen every year because, you know, they choose us to come into there, the Pontiffs. And I really appreciate knowing that we can go in there and, you know, draw some fans, hopefully, and keep the money for the Pontiff Foundation going. You know, I lived it. I watched my mom and dad bury a child. You know, I lost a brother and when I first got here. And I saw what my parents went through when they lost a child. I know how tough it is. And so the last thing you want is your child's legacy to fade or to die or die away. And so to be chosen to go there and play because we bring fans, I appreciate our fans going there too, because the money in that game goes to the Pontiff Foundation, which continues to keep, you know, Wally's legacy alive. So we appreciate going down there and playing in that, and we're glad that we've been able to continue to play LSU as much as we have, and they'll be back, I think. Bab knows that, maybe in 2020. So I think it's good. It's good for both programs.
What type of crowd are you expecting in terms of, I mean, do you think you guys can get enough people this week, people in break to come out there?
Well, I think it's always a good crowd.
In terms of like Robe, you got not just number of people, in terms of people, your home fans. So.
Oh, our home fans travel it, you know, good every year. I think they also understand that going to that game, you know, has a bigger cause to it than just LSU versus UL situation. So they've always traveled it well. And we have a lot of boosters and donors and a big Ragin Cajun contingent in that New Orleans area. So I think that's good too, because we're able to get in there and have that contingency be able to come out really close to a ball game and see us.
Is there anything that you can take from the previous matchup, or are you more focused on yourselves wanting to perform?
Yeah, you know, I've always been about us. Y'all know that. The difference in this is that we're not at home. You know, we don't have our fans. We're going into a ballpark that's going to have predominantly more of their fans. So it's more or less a road game now instead of a home game. So that's the biggest difference maker now, is going in and playing on the road now versus home.
I think the biggest difference in the midweek versus the weekend setting has it been simply the starting pitching. I mean, you've had Schmitty go in a number of those.
Well, I think again, I think you're exactly right. I think the pitching sets the tempo for really anything. I mean, even coaching the softball program, you put somebody in there that can dominate somebody's opponent, man. I mean, you're just a better team. Schmitty's been so consistent. That's why I think the win-loss record is so consistent. What's kind of hurt us a little bit is, you know, Nick's pitched really well on a certain night, and then some nights hasn't pitched as well. Then Jack's done the same thing. You know, he's able to go wire to wire almost on Vanderbilt, but then we got an inning spun out of control on us the other day. Wasn't totally his fault, but we have a little inconsistency. They're not going to win every start, but you want to try to do is have some consistency. Smitty's been the most consistent, and I think that's, your hitters play behind good pitching, your defense plays behind good pitching, and I think Smitty's been able to do that for us. Is keep the score down, which is conducive for us, and pitch with a lot of intensity. Pitch with a lot of security that he's not going to let the game get away. And he doesn't. They cut him for one the other day, and then he sits right there from that point on. We can't expect every pitcher to just give up one run and win. But what you want to try to do is pitch against a 3-run inning and stay away from an inning getting spun out of control. Also, he keeps the free stuff down. Jeff told me before I got up here, what's his numbers? In see, so those kind of things. That's what winning follows. Winning follows somebody that doesn't give somebody free stuff. If you look back at their most consistent starts, Mississippi State for Nick, Vanderbilt for Jack, the walks are down. If you look back at the inconsistent starts, the walks are up. It is so hard for a team to get a 3-run inning without a walk, without an error, without a hit batter, by doing it just with hits. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's very tough to do, very tough. And what leads to 3-run innings is walks, errors, hit batters, pass balls, wild pitches, anything that gives somebody a free base. Anytime you give somebody a free base, it takes less hits to score runs. And so already it's tough to get 10 hits in a 9-inning game. So do the math. How is somebody scoring all those runs if they're getting less than 10 hits in a 9-inning game? But it's their hits are doing damage because you're allowing people on. Like in the inning we spun out of control, that starts with a bounder, a good pitch, 2-strike pitch, bounds down to third base, guy outruns it. Okay, that's going to happen. Then we get the next guy 0-2. But then we hit him. So that's one of the worst walks you can have is once somebody already at first, because it pushes somebody up in a scoring position. Leadoff walk is still bad, but you still have the opportunity to induce the double play. But ball, when you push that guy up in a scoring position, now a flare does damage. Whereas if there's nobody on or a run at first and a flare falls, you're sitting at worst, first and third. Nobody's scored yet. That's why teams that have a high on-base percentage and a high slugging percentage are so good, because all their guys are standing at second and third because of slug. So what's their hits doing? They're doing damage. Every time they get them, damage is done. And so if you look, what the reason why Smitty keeps the score down is he's never, I don't even want to say this, he hasn't given up a 3-run inning, I don't think. And the second thing he does is he's third in the country in the amount of walks. So guess what? Every time they're getting a hit, see, Gunnar was good at that. Gunnar would make you spread out 8 to 9 hits in a game, and you'd look up and you'd have 1 run. How does that occur? That occurs because it's how he's pitching. See, in the big leagues, they give up a hit an inning, pitchers. The difference maker for them, though, is how they pitch before and after they give up the hit. That's the difference. And so because our slug is not as high as it could be, we're working on it, and our on-base percentage, if those two can keep growing, well, then now when you get a hit, it's doing damage. Because if you stuck at first base all the time with low slug, the problem with that is you're constantly bunting to move that runner up. So you're giving people an out. It's not that I'm against the bunt, but you're constantly giving people an out. And with slug, you're stuck at second and third. So it's the pitching. We've got to get more consistent on the front end. Our ERA has climbed on the weekend versus the middle of the week, but that's Smitty. And Austin Perrin. Austin's been throwing well, too, in the middle of the week for us. He threw well on the road the other day against McNeese. So the difference maker is, I think, we just got to get Smitty and Jack to come back, be consistent, get us off to a good start, just stop the free stuff. If we can do that, we're playing good defense. But there's no defense against the walk. I don't care how good of a defense you got. There's no defense against the walk. So we just got to get more consistent with our starting pitching right now.
Do you think there's going to be any spillover from the basketball? Obviously, it's a different sport, but do you think there's any spillover from just the intensity of the basketball game they just played?
No, I mean, we had it. I don't know how long ago, but we had it. I mean, certain teams have certain fiery players. I've had some teams that had very fiery players, and when you play another team that's got fiery players, you get a little fire. That can happen, but you got to try to handle it and not let it try to consume you, and keep it a basketball game and keep it a baseball game to the best of your ability. But when you get big crowds and big fans, it's like the year. I forget the guy's name. I think he was a linebacker or something. I forget what team, but they kept promoting it all week. Boy, watch this game. There's gonna be a lot of fire. There's gonna be a lot of fireworks, and there's gonna be a lot of fireworks because this team did that to this team. So they promote that all week. At the end of the game, that linebacker, that football player, I forget his name, but he punched somebody, after the game, and then they want to run a whole week's program on how bad this kid is. Well, you ran a week's program before that saying there's going to be a fight, and this is going to be fiery, and you get what you want, and then now we sit and want to throw the kid away because the guy hit somebody, but he let it consume him, you see, and that's what you got to watch out for is you want that game to mean something. That game meant something the other day. But you got to be careful and try not to let it consume you. That's what you have to watch out for in those situations. No matter whether it's LSU or Tulane or whoever you play and whoever that rivalry happens with, you got to try not to let it consume you to the best of your ability.
You talked before the season about Fontenot as being your utility guy, and it's played out obviously that way. How much has that helped you as you've tried to figure things out? And he's also maintained his RBI production despite playing
yes.
different places.
We talked about at the end of the season. We thought he'd be kind of like Ryan Leonard's, Joe Robbins. Those guys are very valuable on teams because every time there's kind of a hole somewhere, you can kind of move them to plug that hole up for a little while until maybe things settle back down. That's not always easy to do with a player because most guys see the ball on one side of the field, whether it's coming to them this way on the right side, so they become right side infielders or outfielders, and then some guys see the ball their whole life coming this way off the bat, so they're a left side infielder and left side outfielder. So to keep him moving around like we have is a credit to him, and it's really helped us having that utility guys. Those guys are hard to find. But they make your roster better because they give you an extra 1, 2, or 3 players. Joe gave you, everything. Joe was, being kind of trained a little bit as a catcher. We were down to 1 catcher. He was our third baseman. He could go to shortstop. He could play second. He could have played first. And the guy could went out there and play center field, which is one of the most difficult places to play. So Joe was so valuable. Leonard's was the same way. Leonard's was a shortstop in high school and pitched. He played third for us, could play second, could play short, and then could move out and play the outfield for us. So when you get a utility player like that, that's a big bonus for you. So Ken has done a good job.
Obviously, you guys got to get through this LSU game, but what stands out about Arkansas State over the weekend?
Well, again, we're on the road, and, we have to solve us to win. Troy, didn't do anything to make us lose. We didn't handle us. And so it led to us losing. Not trying to be disrespectful to them, but the way I look at stuff is I don't really care who we play against. I think every game's a test. They're going to test you. Tomorrow night's going to be a test, and you have to solve the test. And you can't get away from the script in this business. I know it gets so old talking to you because you can't get away from the script. The script is simple. It's pitch, play defense, and they get timely hitting. Yesterday's game was a microcosm of that, right? We pitch, we play defense, we get 1 timely hit, and we're winners because we managed the other 2. when you get away from pitching, man, you better have the firepower to come back from that, because when you don't have pitching, I mean, the pitcher's the most important guy out there. He wouldn't be 10 inches higher than everybody else. I mean, he's the guy. It starts and stops with pitching. And if you look at the games we've lost this weekend, we had inconsistent pitching. I'm not blaming it on Nick or Jack. It's just anybody could have been out there as a pitcher. If you're inconsistent, it gets you off to a bad start. We did a good job. The team we were from the 5th inning on Saturday, we literally put the tying run at home plate, and then when they loaded the bases on us, we actually got the winning run up to home plate. Don't have nothing to show for it, but if one of those guys hits a ball out of the ballpark, of course wind's blowing in that day, but if the ball leaves the ballpark, I mean, we could have conceivably won that game or tied the game up. So I was glad at least, you know, they fought back to try to get back in the game, and so yesterday's game, it just fit the script. Going to play LSU there's a script. I mean, it's scripted. You go in, you got to slow the game down, you got to slow the momentum down, and you've got to not get fast because of the crowd, because of who you playing, and you also can't let history beat you. But that's what the great programs do. You know, the Yankees walk in here to play you. They're bringing Babe Ruth and everybody, right? I mean, that's a lot of history to fight. So you start a rookie against the Yankees. He's trying to fight a lot of things. He's trying to fight history. If he gets that start in Yankee Stadium, he's got to fight a lot of stuff, man. A lot of fans, a lot of history. Pitching happens in milliseconds. So if those guys get a little ahead of themselves, now the breaking ball hangs. The changeup doesn't move down, stays over the plate. A lot of things happen in the game to a pitcher and then a defender. You know, you get the ground ball double play to get out of the inning. If the shortstop gets too fast and kicks it, then guess what? That extends an inning. And you don't want to do that when you play somebody like LSU where you're fighting adrenaline. You don't want them adrenalized. They can get adrenalized off their crowd. And when somebody gets adrenalized, man, you're dealing with a totally different guy now. And so here at home, it's a little bit easier to stop that from happening. It's a lot tougher to stop it from happening on the road. So that's our test tomorrow, is to try to keep that down, stay in the moment, try not to let them get adrenalized, keep the crowd out of it and the history out of it, and try to make it a baseball game.
What's the script for the Arkansas State thing you're saying?
Now you're going to be on the road, and you're going to go from 100 people in the stands. Not to be disrespectful, but you're going to go from a low crowd now. You're going to go from no energy. See, I don't have to motivate them tomorrow. They're going to have a hop in their step. It's to keep the same hop when you get off the bus in Jonesboro. That's the difference maker, because you're going to go from all that adrenaline, all that want to, all that history, and you're going to get on a bus. You're going to get back tomorrow night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to get on a bus at 7:30 in the morning, and you're going to do 9 hours somewhere. Then you're going to get off that bus, and you're going to get to a stadium that, you know, it's the energy in that stadium is just not like it is at LSU. So you're going to have to be able to create your own energy, and you're going to have to be able to create, you know, the want to and everything else. And that's what teams go through during the year. That's why being on the road is so hard, because you're disadvantaged when you're on the road. So that's our script going into Arkansas, is that we've got to try to not let the big crowd, the big moment, all this energy on Tuesday, you know, leave us, and then get into there and not have energy.
LaHare, he ran yesterday. Is he going to be able to get back in the lineup? And then anything new on Handsome?
Maybe tomorrow, possibly for LaHare, but I'm sure the weekend I think he'll be fine. It's just soreness. anytime you not dislocate or hyperextend something like he did, you got a lot of soreness to deal with. So he's got some soreness. He hit off a tee yesterday, but will he be able to fully swing with max effort for tomorrow night? We don't know. It is a day-to-day thing because that soreness, he's feeling it let up every day. It's letting up every day, which is a good sign. So I think we'll have him for the weekend for sure. For tomorrow, I don't know. That'll be a wake-up, swing again tomorrow and see how you feel. Handsome is still coming along, but he's not, ready yet. That knee still has a little bit of looseness in it, and there's no way he could get down and try to catch and go left or right with that for sure. That might be a possibility, but right now there's still some looseness in it. It's not ready. So he's not something that we can actually pull out tomorrow for the weekend for sure.
You mentioned the crowd in New Orleans. Do you notice a difference when you play at Alec Box versus playing in New Orleans, especially because the beverages might be a little bit different that are sold?
Well, we feel a little different in New Orleans because there's not as much people like around you, like they're on the sides and up. The outfield, I think it's got a berm, but it doesn't have all the seats in it like do LSU where the sound goes, around you. You're surrounded. So there's a little difference of a feeling. There's a little difference between the old Alex box and this one, Everybody was so much closer to you, In the New Orleans, the Zephyr Stadium, they're not as close to you, on the field. So there is a little difference, a little different feeling. I don't know how much they feel it because they don't play them enough, None of these kids, well, they might have played no Alex box in select baseball or something, but they don't know what me and Bab know because we've played them long enough in the old stadium to this stadium. But there is a little difference in the New Orleans stadium. Yeah.
You mentioned that time when things were not acrimony, there was some acrimony between the teams. How did y'all get past that?
Well, Coach Bertman put kind of a quiet period on us for a little bit. Then I think what happens is those players that are in there kind of move out. It's just like the old days of South Alabama here, Papo and that. They had proud players. USL had proud players. South was proud. USL was proud. So Jay can tell you. I mean, those were some feisty times. And then over time, players move on, and then the culture kind of changes a little bit, and every player is different that you have on your team, and that I think changes a little bit of the culture. But I think some guys moved on, and some time kind of set in, and then we went back. The first time we went back to play, a lot of our guys that were here had played summer ball for the Louisiana Legends with a lot of their players. So they kind of knew each other more. So I think that's what happens sometimes as time gets in and players change. I think the fan base always stays the same. I mean, I know it's still a rival, South Al and us, and LSU and us, and will always be a rival between the fans. But I just think both sides that we had that year had really proud. Not that we don't have proud players, but every kid's different in how he shows his emotion, if you will. And you might hit one kid with a pitch and he takes his base. You hit, somebody else with a pitch, he might take offense to it. So there's a difference. What we have to watch out for is not letting the pro game come into the college game. The pro game, it polices itself. It fixes everything. A little bit tougher to do that in college baseball sometimes.